Hello, my name is Jennifer English Morgan. Hey, that was a lot of information. I would like to help ground the thinking by providing some practical steps that you can take to integrate what was shared and towards becoming an emergent designer. So here's 11 tips. Number one, anchoring. First of all, anchor to yourself. Commit to loving you, all of you, and practice aligning with your center. So sometimes when things are really out of balance, we feel disconnected from our center. So that's why it's so important to create a daily or at least weekly practice of connecting with that anchor, so that when we do get stressed or chaos arises, that we learn how to dance with it gracefully and move back to center. So I actually envision that I have an anchor, and when I move out of that center, that vibration or that feeling, I can, tell like, okay, here things are a little edgy, I'm learning, I'm growing. But once my pain body gets triggered, I put all my attention into wrapping up whatever it is I'm doing and redirecting my attention to finding that anchor. Number two, be gentle with yourself. This is a lot. In fact, the more that you open up and expand, sometimes the more crazy life feels. And many of us are in this fight, flight, or freeze response with adrenal overload or deficiency. And it's so important to lighten up and nurture the nervous system. So go easy. When things arise and you find that you're judging yourself for not doing it good enough, even this practice, or you're trying to meditate and it's not happening, bringing in more stress by judging yourself isn't going to soften your nervous system. So don't get caught up in taking it all too seriously. Keep it simple. And if you do find yourself getting caught up in it, that's okay too. Just take some deep breaths and remind yourself to calm and nurture your nervous system. Number three, connect to the universe. Remember that there's 99.9% space connecting everything. So try not to get so hung up on all the details of stuff, all that matter obsession that I was talking about earlier. While at the same time, be responsible for owning your perception. When you catch yourself projecting, it's a good moment to pull out a mirror and rest your mind in space consciousness. So on one hand, it's really good to shift your perspective. So like if you're having an experience and you can feel those hooks are starting to latch in, you can sometimes just shift your perspective to a more planetary or cultural or ancestral way of looking at that problem, or even, say, what would my teacher do, or what would my mother do? So to shift perspective. And another way then is to also shift perspective to space. So I'm going to be providing a meditation on space awareness that you can use and to even anchor to that feeling, to ease up and feel a connection at the same time. And then in that connection, be accountable for what is yours, be authentic. So number four is to commit to being present. So practice being the observer in the present moment. Take note of when and where you get hung up. Again, don't berate yourself, just be with it and move on and repeat over and over and over again. And don't despair. And if you do, that's okay. Sometimes it's really, really, really hard. And sometimes it, could be what you ate, or the temperature in the room, or the fact that the air conditioner was on and you weren't used to the air conditioning. It could be so many things. that have nothing to do with anything that you can pinpoint that's causing you to have a difficult time being present, but that is okay. Even if you find yourself going hours or days or weeks not being present, it's not too late. You can always have that moment of reconnecting with your commitment of being present. Number 5 is practice. Practice, practice, practice. This is so important. Think of your mind and imagine that there was a circle or a spiral and that it was divided into a lot of sectors. Each one of those sectors needs to be exercised. Just like all the muscles on the body, so too are all the different levels and sectors of our consciousness. And that's why it's so wonderful to have so many different lineages of meditation, because each one essentially can help stretch or expand the muscles of our mind. So, for instance, practice accepting whatever emerges. So set with it, make a pattern of, incorporating that into your life, either a meditation practice or just moments of mindfulness, and always just do your best. If something arises while you're allowing and noting what emerges that feels like something that you are inspired about or that you need to work on, just package that information and have a place where that goes, like sort of a matters arising board or, a mental notepad. And then you can create space to come back to that and view it later. But try to practice, like I said, practice connecting with your center, practice observing what emerges. And if you can do this, again, it enables you to handle stress and chaos more gracefully, so that you'll be able to dance with whatever emerges rather than sort of trip over those transitions. Number 6 is be proactive. Approach challenges as opportunities to express your creativity. So there might be a moment where we recognize that there's been a shift in our momentum, or we set our intentions towards something and that's not happening. So a challenge arises. Now, first of all, challenges are all a matter of perspective, but regardless, you, for whatever reason, identify it as a hurdle or a challenge or an edge. So one of the first things to do is observe that you're having that sensation, and then to move from observation into creative possibilities. So what can you gain from this? What can you learn from this moment? What new emerging possibilities are arising for you? So again, being proactive. Number 7, choose to be an active experimenter. I know a lot of people have gotten hung up on trying out different worldviews or practices or using different tools because there's this sense of commitment that, oh, what if this isn't right for me? Or what if this actually makes things even more difficult? So rather than having that fear of commitment be a hurdle to moving into a new method or a new way of being, see if you can step into the archetype of the experimenter. I also like to be the archetype of the anthropologist, which I'll get to in a moment. So the thing about experimenting is that you are consciously choosing for a certain period of time to track certain intentions. Now, the thing is, with an experiment, you're not really hooking onto any specific outcome, because the active archetype is just watching and observing what's happening. And if it goes this way or if it goes that way, the purpose is to not direct which way it goes, but to see and try it on and see what occurs, and what the process is, and how the pathway emerges. So having that role of active experimenter is super helpful. And then when you're good at that, maybe slip on the active experimenter and some really easy things, and then when you get comfortable there, then you can actually push some of your edges intentionally. What I mean by that is, for instance, that you have some triggers or some shadows or some social conditions that have kind of been embedded. So after you get some, your training wheels greased, and you get some comfort with practicing, go ahead and start trying out changing those worldviews, or diving in a little bit and facing some of those dark shadows that have been preventing you from being who you want to be. Same with the anthropologist. That archetype just really helps you ease into looking at everything from the observer point of view, and being able to stay at that sort of intentional, I'm trying something new tools and beliefs as an exercise. So don't be attached. Practice really is a great thing. Muscle matter of the mind. Exercise it. So number 8, be respectful first and honor those different voices that are chattering away in your mind, and then incorporate some play. So when those voices arise and you shun them or blame them, reject them, that resistance is going to make them persist. So I have found that it's best to respect and honor them, to actually do some deep shadow work, which means that you're going to, it's best, I'm going to just clarify that. So it's best to not do shadow work when your pain body is activated. And I don't generally do shadow work spontaneously either. I intentionally create a safe space to do shadow work, and some designated time. So anyway, when you are let's say that those voices are arising, respect them. See what it is they have to say. Ask them what is it that you want to express or to experience, or there's all sorts of different questions, and I actually wrote an article which you can read more about the types of questions that you can ask yourself. But basically my point is to be respectful. And then after you've given that attention and honoring those voices, then you can move into being a little bit more playful. You can be like, oh, there you are again. You can, one of my teachers even names her different voices, as different archetypes or characters. So that's the thing that I've found is helpful is, number 1, first honor and be respectful and let them be heard. And then number 2, kind of poke at them and be playful and, have a chit-chat relationship with those voices so it becomes light and easy. Number 9, create moments of routine reflection so you can check in and make adjustments and decisions. So I do this with everything, my consciousness, my spiritual practices, my project management. This act of creating routine reflections to check in on different levels is so, so important. So let's say on an annual basis, I might have a big retreat with myself. And in that, I'm going to reflect on where I've come and look at where I want to go and really sit with what's true and authentic in the present moment. And that part is the most important, which goes back to number 1, which is anchoring to yourself. And I think it was 4, being present. So getting used to combining your ability to take the wisdom from where you've been and your experiences with the seeds that you would like to plant for the future, with really assessing what's real and present. What is the landscape? What is the temperature of the moment, really assessing what your capacity is to be present. So those moments of routine reflection, again, I might do quite a large retreat with myself on an annual basis. On a seasonal or monthly basis, I might just check in with, okay, what were those goals and what's real now? And on a weekly and daily basis, I might move more from sort of the big picture reflections and intentions and focus specifically on what is real in this moment. So I call that routine reflection. And again, it really helps with making adjustments and decisions. Number 10 is to pay attention to your patterns and flows. So with permaculture, we're looking at patterns and flows in our environment and between the relations of different elements in our systems. So also pay attention to patterns and flows with your work energy, with your thoughts. All of this, we can use the same principles that we would apply in designing a landscape or our garden to also look for patterns and flows in our consciousness or designing the mindscape. So once you notice these patterns and flows, use them to direct your attention and put momentum behind what feels more aligned and re-navigate or transform what feels out of alignment. So momentum is a really important piece to patterns and flows because I want to encourage you to incorporate this little practice of recognizing that once your mind gets on a train of thinking, that momentum is just going to snowball. So if you can accept that perhaps when we sleep and we have a good sound sleep, that the next morning we kind of wake up and we have more of a blank canvas where we're not as attached to what's happened to us throughout the day and through the momentum of the energy throughout the previous day. So after you go to bed, you can set the attention of, harmonizing and getting whatever stuff you need to get worked out. When you wake up in the morning, see if you can really spend those first 3 minutes having a momentum that aligns with the patterns and flows that serve your highest self. So, for instance, maybe that's a good time to meditate, or that's a good time to practice connecting to your center, or it's a good time to practice being the observer and not judging any of your thoughts that are arising. In any case, put your momentum towards being that proactive, anchored self, your authentic self, because that's going to be the easiest time for you to recondition the flow of energy for your day before it gets caught up in negativity. Number 11, engage in deconstructing and reconditioning and assimilating your learning. So what that means is, first of all, I wrote an article on deconstructing and reconditioning. It would be great if you could identify different worldviews and social conditions that aren't serving you and kind of come up with some steps that you can take to tweak those or to insert new ways of thinking. So our minds are we have neuroplasticity, so we can go in there and identify actually in the DNA through meditation and through practice different ways of thinking. What's not working, take it out and insert a new way of being that is going to work. And then you can assimilate that through practice and through your ongoing learning and